Redditors, what is your never again story?
Once I made 2 terrible food decisions in a single day. This was years ago when I was in my middle 20s. I woke up hungry and went to the fridge to grab some leftover Taco Bell, but I'd accidentally forgotten it in the car overnight. Still, I thought if I microwaved it, it'll be fine. So I ate a Taco Bell chicken quesadilla that had been sitting out for over 20 hours. Just as I was finishing it up, my buddy called and begged me to join him on a just friends hang session with this girl he was trying to date. They wanted to go to this Asian seafood place I'd always seen driving by, but never been to. So we go, and they have a kind of mini seafood super platter that's meant to feed the whole table. Like a super sampler. We get that. It's supposed to feed 6, but we finish it off as a party of 4. That afternoon, it began. My friend called and asked if I was feeling bad from the seafood, and I told him yeah, but it was probably something from earlier in the day for me. He said, yeah, we're feeling a little queasy too, but we've got tickets tonight so we're just gonna drink water and go for it. I got a date. Woo. I wished him luck and went back to Fallout 3. By midnight I thought I was going to turn inside out. It was so bad, I would have called 911 if my phone had been in the bathroom with me, but it was on my nightstand and I physically could not get to it. I could hear it ringing occasionally, so I hoped that whoever was trying to call would stop by and take me to the hospital. It was the longest night of my life. But by early afternoon the next day, I was coming around. I tried to stay hydrated by letting shower water run into my mouth during the event. The toilet was right next to the tub and I could sit and hang my head into the tub at the same time under the shower head. So I just ran the shower on my head, crapped my guts out the back, and vomited my soul out the front. Turns out the calls late at night were my buddy, calling to come pick them up because they had both had accidents at the concert, on their first date. They are married now. This was before Uber or Lyft in case anyone is wondering. They finally managed to get his uncle to get them. Never again TLDR, double ultra food poisoning, while friends shit themselves on their first date. Edit, cleaned up the grammar and syntax somewhat. I've always been bad about sloppy draft style writing, but I know it can bother people sometimes. Rode an Amtrak train from New Orleans to Washington, D.C. I thought I was a prodigy by choosing coach seating over a sleeper car or flying as I was saving some money by doing so. Jump forward to 25 hours in the same seat, dude next to me pulling a Germany vs Poland invasion of the armrest, baby screaming all night in the back of the car and I couldn't sleep. The toilet situation had deteriorated on board to the point where I would use elbows and my boots to open and close the door and flush the toilet as my fellow riders were baffled by the concept of flushing and utilizing a trash bin for paper towels. I've been awake 25 hours by this point and it's 3:45 a.m. If I ever do this, it's gotta be in a sleeper car. Fuck the savings. Murder on the Orient Express had the right idea. Edit, holy crap, my inbox has been blowing up all day today. Lol. I am glad there are other people who shared this type of experience. Edit 2, might need to make a post myself about travel horror stories. Jesus guys. Took an Amtrak train from Montana to ND, on trip that was supposed to take 12 hours, ended up taking 28 fucking hours due to mostly winter-related delays. And another 4 hours of which was a surprise stop and search by heavily armed border patrol. It reached nightmare proportions when the food and beverage car ran out of everything. No food. No drinks. This was about 15 hours in, first time I felt the pains of true hunger in my life. It was a very rural scenic route, high line, and included only one stop, which happened to be the one place they moved quickly 15 minutes at 3 in the morning. The lone vending machine at that podunk station was bum-rushed and empty before we even got within 5 feet of it. It was a specific kind of heel. Even after the trip out ended, the nightmare didn't. Amtrak cancelled the return voyage due to weather for 7 days, which in turn caused the buses to sell out for the entire week, and every rental car in the region was taken. After desperately searching for 2 days, we found one luxury car available to go out west from the airport at $400 a day. We had to get back to work, and had no choice. The car was rear-wheel drive and we spent the next 12 hours white-knuckle drifting all over the highway, because Amtrak hung a full train of people out to dry. The irony was the whole reason we took the train to avoid driving in winter conditions. Only our cars were far better equipped than the sports car we got shafted with. Never again. Being young and stupid enough to drink whatever mixed drinks my friends were handing me at the bar when I was in college. This was about 8 years ago and I was probably 22 at the time. Before this I had only ever really had beer. My friend knew the bartender at the place we were hanging out. She was making the drinks way too strong. I remember one of the last drinks I had that night was called Adios Motherfucker. After we left the bar, I'm told I refused to stick with the group and ended up walking a few miles to the other side of town because I'm a complete idiot. At some point I realized I was super drunk and literally called the police on myself because I was sick, puking and lost. They ended up calling an ambulance. I had no insurance at the time and it cost me $600. Apparently when you're that drunk the police won't just take you home. Didn't expect that and paid the price. Edit. People have commented that $600 is cheap for an ambulance ride. The bill from the hospital was huge and actually fucked up my credit score because I was broke. I woke up in the hallway of the hospital sprawled out on a gurney the following morning. I had puked on my shirt, so at some point they had put me in a hospital gown. Eventually hospital staff realized I was up and moving around. They were all excited because apparently they had some sort of bet for how long I was going to be passed out. They handed me a pamphlet about the dangers of binge drinking and I was out the door. Edit. The staff was actually really helpful and gave me some sports drinks to help me out. They didn't just kick me out. I just didn't want to get that deep into it. I walked 1.5 miles back to my house with my hospital attire blowing in the breeze. I had to stop to puke twice. The funniest part about this lovely walk home is that it was smack in the middle of all the student housing by my college. I had long hair at the time and it was all greasy and crazy. My appearance was a mix between escaped mental patient infected by zombie virus but hadn't yet fully turned. The looks I was getting from people I passed on the sidewalk were priceless, and even in my terribly ill state I had a few laughs at myself for how ridiculous this ordeal was. I managed to get home to take a shower and sleep for a couple of hours before having to go to work at Jimmy John's as a delivery driver. Edit. I never really knew what it meant to say RIP my inbox, but I've reached that point. Thanks for all the laughs. I've commented on as many of your responses as I could. Thanks for all the upvotes. This was so much fun. Stay away from those AMFs. I had no idea it was a popular drink until today. The resort I stayed at in the Dominican Republic had a swim-up bar in the pool. The cocktail of the day was a piña colada. Being of newly legal drinking age and at an all-inclusive resort, and also not yet having a taste for hard alcohol, thus resorting to getting pickled off coolers and cocktails, I went hard on piña coladas. One after the other, in rapid succession. What I didn't know was that, when you drink while swimming, being weightless in the water means that you don't realize you're drunk until you're really fucking drunk. I ended up getting a lot more intoxicated than I had anticipated, possibly the most I've ever been in my life. I don't remember anything between being dragged out of the pool by my parents and sitting in the corner of our hotel room, crying. Thus began many hours of tears, double vision, vomiting into the toilet, and fading in and out of consciousness on the bathroom floor. I couldn't smell alcohol for 3 days without physically feeling sick to my stomach. I still drink, but because of that memory, piña coladas have been forever ruined for me. Never again will I engage in any sort of eating race. About 10 years back, I worked for Walmart, and my co-worker and I would always take breaks together. I think he and I were in a constant and spoken competition to be the weirdest Walmart employee. We both wore fake name tags, and we'd use the paging system inappropriately, but all in all, we were hard workers, so our bosses never got onto us. Well, one day in the break room we decided to have a race that involved eating a cinnamon roll and chasing it with a cup full of maple syrup. We had a small audience for the event. We were sitting across the table from each other when someone said go, and before I could even unwrap my cinnamon roll he slammed down his cup of maple syrup. I asked him, "How did you eat that so fast?" He said, "I just swallowed it whole." I demanded a rematch and bought him another cinnamon roll from the vending machine. This time, I was determined to win. Someone said go, and I shoved the cinnamon roll in the back of my mouth, grabbed the syrup and swallowed, but I didn't swallow. I inhaled the cinnamon roll into my esophagus and began choking. Everyone was laughing until I leaped up from the table, causing one whole side of the table to collapse, spilling multiple people's lunches onto the floor. Then I heard someone say, "Dude, she's choking." I pointed at that guy and vigorously shook my head as I stumbled around the break room making the international sign for choking. I remember people saying, "Do something, does anyone know the Heimlich?" No one was helping. They were just all in shock watching me frantically hit myself repeatedly in the chest. It was then I decided to run as fast as I could into a counter and ram my rib cage. Then I just grabbed the edge of the sink and repeatedly used my arms to pull my chest to the counter and ram my ribs. After about 3 times I spun around and a fist-sized cinnamon roll bullet shot out of my throat and splattered on the floor like a snowball. I took the biggest breath of air into my lungs after about a full minute of choking, and my co-worker says, "You totally lost." The choking incident in the break room was all the talk around work for some time, and the fact that I high-kicked a table in half and wrecked about 4 people's lunch. I was taking a trip to London and saw it was so much cheaper to start my flights in Dallas, 5 hours away. So I drove there, left my car, and took my trip. Everything went awesome. I figured I could get back to Dallas after sleeping on the plane and just drive home, which was a dumb idea, and I eventually gave up and got a hotel. I left while it was still dark, driving through Oklahoma, and I saw a storm in the distance. Of course I got stuck in that storm in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't pull over, and there wasn't any place to stop, so I had to power through till I hit the next town. It was raining and hailing so hard I couldn't see, my car would occasionally lose traction, and the radio informed me there was a tornado watch in an area near me. It was one of the most terrifying experiences I've been through. I made it to the next town and got myself a Victory McGriddle and swore I would always pay the extra money to fly out of the smaller airport near my hometown. The true Mexican side of me was making homemade tostadas with just regular corn tortillas you get at the store. I deep fried them, and I didn't notice one of them had bubbled up and made a hole which would eventually fill up with oil. So I got my plate, stacked my tostada with refried beans, shredded chicken, salsa verde and cheese. Best thing ever. Got to the middle end section where there was a bubble, bit it, and instantly it tasted like oil. It clicked in my head that it was full of oil. I thought a little oil can't hurt. I eat fried foods all the time. Yeah, it was olive oil. Didn't really feel anything. It was about 3:30 p.m. when I ate this. I worked at 5. I get ready, my stomach feels a little weird, but I didn't think anything of it. I get to work. Instantly, I have to go to the bathroom. It's a poop fest. Sloppy squishy poop. I'm in the bathroom for half an hour. I can't get up. I text my supervisor about what happened. She is cracking up. Tells me to wipe and go home. I go home. Spend the rest of my night on and off the pooper. Lesson learned, do not eat a bubble full of oil. Never again. About 4 years ago now, I was invited into a mystical world my simple mind hadn't thunk far into previously. That world is Comic-Con. I'm a very open book type of guy, and that yields me some pretty awesomely unique friends and acquaintances. Having the variety in life is great because of the new and thrilling things I get to experience that I wouldn't probably go seek out by my lonesome. Comic-Con was no exception. As someone who spends the majority of his time wrenching on cars, anime and cosplay was totally foreign to me. But my friend, we'll call him Kurt, insisted I attend with him. He also assured me he would be my guy to be sure I didn't get caught up in any of the shenanigans that these events are notorious for. He lied. Kurt lied through his teeth. Considering it took about 10 minutes inside the convention center before I went to ask him a question and he was gone. Dozens of unsuccessful phone calls planted me in the driver's seat of my own unknowing adventure. I wandered around in amazement and admittedly had a wonderful time. The costumes, the acting, the individualism of everyone who may not get that attention day by day was eye-opening and wonderful. But hours passed and eventually, I decided I'd like to meander back to my homestead. Only one problem. Kurt was my ride and home is an hour away. Great. More useless calling outside the venue left me stranded and a bit panicked. When a hand met my shoulder, I quickly whipped around to see a familiar face. In a not-so-familiar body. The body of a big fluffy German shepherd. My best friend from high school turned fur-sitting cosplayer was coming to my rescue. After explaining my predicament, friend laughs and told me I'm welcome to come by his hotel room where he'll change and give me a lift homeward. Great. Right? I knew something wasn't quite right when there were 3 full-fledged furries sitting in the room waiting. Within 5 minutes of being there, 4 more family pets were entering. One with a handful of various toys. I got an Uber on standby, said my farewells to the pack and heat, and vowed to never speak of my close call again. Until now, on Reddit, for the world to see, TLDR almost fell victim to a ravenous horde of horny hound dogs after a day of pretending to be someone I'm just not. Furry orgies are real. Keep your head up and your tail down, folks. I was maybe 10 years old, and on vacation with my family. We had gone to a restaurant for lunch that was supposedly locally famous, and I ordered a fried fish sandwich. It came, and as I took my first bite I told my mum that it tasted funny. She scolded me for being picky, and told me to eat it. So I did. 2 hours later, we're doing some tourist stuff and I'm not feeling well at all. Again I complained, and my mum took me to the car to wait for everyone else. When they got back, they decided we needed to make one more stop on the way back. I was assured it would be quick. Mum and I waited in the car as I was feeling much worse. After we finally started to head back to the hotel, my dad was taking a winding road with lots of small hills, and he was going fast enough that the car was bouncing and such. I asked him to slow down because I wasn't feeling well, and immediately threw up all over my mum. What followed was almost a week of the worst sickness I've ever had. Various fluids were coming out of both ends, and when there were no fluids left, my body was still trying to purge with dry heaves. It was awful. I'm 32 now, and I haven't had a fried fish sandwich since. It's the strangest thing, because I'm fine with like fish sticks or just a piece of fried fish, but if you put it on a bun, I can't bring myself to eat it. My friend and I in our junior year of college each drank half of a 750 milliliter bottle of Grey Goose vodka in one night, a Sunday night. We collectively have 15 minutes of memory from that night. We were informed via videos and stories of what we did. We had a drunken race up and down the hallway at midnight. I later discovered a dent in my ceiling that matched the size and shape of my Leatherman multi-tool. At one point my girlfriend came back into the room and found me hiding in the corner wearing my chemical splash goggles from organic chemistry, saying chemical spills can happen at any time, with my friend on the other side of the room throwing shit at me. I'd use more examples of our drunken idiocy, but as previously stated, we have 15 minutes of collective memory of this event. The next morning I woke up still drunk, went to class and transitioned from drunk to hungover, first and only hangover to date. Halfway through the class, there was only 25 students in the class and I was in the front row. I emailed my other profs for the day and went to bed. Slept from 11-4, got up, went to check on my friend. He looked terrible. We got dinner very quietly and I went back to bed. I still had a huge headache Tuesday morning, but I could actually go to class. To this day, about 2 years later, I cannot stand the smell of taste of vodka. Never again. Never again. So it's my buddy's 21st birthday party and we have just been cooped up on a commercial fishing boat for the last 3 months in Alaska. It's the first night in Seattle and we were going crazy. Then we get the idea to go to the Wing Dome and do the 777 challenge. Mistake number 1: I am a masochist and have terrible heartburn but love spicy things. These are 7 wings with 7 alarm sauce that you have to eat in 7 minutes with no drink. If you win, you get a t-shirt and your picture on the wall. We start and he literally begins to cry and puke. After one bite he completely bows out. I hunker down and begin the psychedelic mind trip that can only be induced by hallucinogenic hot sauce. By wing 3 you are in a fevered state where you can't tell hot from cold, your mouth is a geyser of emotions and you are turning red in the face. Sweating profusely, thinking there is no way you can keep up this pace of consumption. By wing 5 your body is rejecting this horror in every way possible. You think that there is just no way the human body or psyche can endure a trauma so unbearable, so it begins to shut down. Your auditory and visual senses are the first to go. People sound like they are going by in a tunnel. Your vision is obscured by what you hope is sweat pooling, or even tears possibly. But no, it is obscured by sheer terror. Your sense of touch has gone for what you may believe to be forever. Your olfactory sense is only that of what I imagine the smell of hell to be, and snot. Just zero mucus retention ability anymore, viscosity be damned. By wing 6 it's about foolishness, by wing 7 it's about pride. As I finished, the owner came up to me to give me the t-shirt and snapped the pic to go up on the wall. All he said, and I'll never forget it, was, "God help you tomorrow, son, God help you tomorrow." Other contestants in eating contests such as these I have later learned to throw up after the meal. Not healthy to let that sit in there. But me in my foolish youth had 911 on speed dial at 4 a.m. as I was heavily considering the need for emergency services while sitting on the toilet and a trash can in front of my face, almost in tears at the pain, and obviously I have a high tolerance for pain. But this gentle readers, was pain I hadn't known existed in corporeal form. A pain so savage that, I do believe, somewhere, the devil himself was laughing in his slumber. TLDR 8 the 7 chicken wing challenge, I won, but did I? Black beans. It's not what you're thinking. I consumed large quantities of black beans daily for a number of months. Unbeknownst to me at the time, black beans, and a lot of other foods, but especially black beans, have a certain natural component called oxalates which promote kidney stones. I had never had a kidney stone in my life, but I began having occasional excruciating pain in my left abdomen. This was eventually revealed to be a 7mm stone. After half a year, it had not budged, though it also hadn't killed my kidney. Lithotripsy was recommended, and I underwent said surgery. This was a mistake. It's a not well documented fact that lithotripsy apparently causes some kind of vessel scale damage which can result in permanently elevated blood pressure. The state of awareness of this bit of data is currently nebulous. There are scientific papers indicating the phenomenon, and plenty of circumstantial evidence, but since a whole industry depends on this particular surgery, you'll probably never hear it from a doctor, at least, not a urologic specialist. I certainly did not. In fact, thanks to my lithotripsy, I now have stage 1 hypertension, whereas my blood pressure was A-OK before. The first I learned of this was when I suddenly experienced a heart rate of about 4 beats per second. Quite alarming, I assure you. Those unnerving episodes went away after they put me on atenolol, but I will need a second medication to actually get my blood pressure under control. The high blood pressure has already caused permanent damage to my eyes, as well, and a day-to-day overall lack of well-being. So yeah, moral of the story, read up on AskReddit, and seriously reconsider lithotripsy if it comes to that. It is not a safe surgery. Google around. Influenced by my parents in any way. A little backstory. So I met this girl through a game a few months back. We just played together for a while, then we went on Skype. We got to know each other over time and we started liking each other. Anyway, we decided to meet IRL, except we're both from different countries Europe, so we chose Amsterdam as a place to meet as it was cheapest for both of us and it was a nice town to visit as well. Now back to my parents. My parents are very conservative, never left the country to travel, watch what is happening around them, so never doing anything of their own, what they want, and are influenced by other people's opinion of them even though they say they are not. So, I told my parents that I'm chatting with this girl, about a month or so after we met online, and I decided to tell them about my trip to Amsterdam. We talked about it exactly 3 times over 2 weeks, and each time they fucking lost it. They started talking about human trafficking there, organ trafficking, scammers, thieves and other criminal stuff, even though they haven't went there. They were really scared for me, even after I told them that it's not that dangerous there. Now, I was planning on traveling alone, so that fired them up even more. Started talking that the girl had people there that gonna kidnap me and more stupid stuff. I told them that I want to travel the world, even alone, if there's no one else, and told them that I just want to travel to Amsterdam. They called me that I'm a kid for thinking that way and told me that I'm not normal. So on the 3rd time we talked, my mother started crying a lot and couldn't calm down, so I had to decide to not go. I will always regret that decision, because I really wanted to meet the girl, but because of that situation I couldn't bring myself to go against my parents' wishes. That's the situation that made me decide to never be influenced by other people, especially my parents, and live my life the way I wanted. So, I decided to move the fuck out of home this autumn, get a job, finish university and get the fuck out of this backwards country. Sorry for the long story, but it felt nice getting it out, even if it's to strangers. 25 IN Bohm. Me and some friends were sold it under the impression it was acid. Decided we'd each take 2 tabs in my house. Started to come up and felt sweaty and restless. Had to go upstairs for a bit just to be alone and try to come down, but I was coming up hard. Ultra aware of my mum sleeping in the next room and I was freaking out, so I told my 2 friends to leave, and that I'd be in touch later. What followed was quite a good hour of listening to music in the dark, at which point I felt enthused and ready to go out with my friends again. I went outside and the street felt like it was curving around me and that I could feel all of the pavement all at once. I met my friends, and one of them said, "If it pleases you, I will simply stop being," which made me laugh harder than I ever had before, but I hit a breaking point with the laugh where I just snapped and started falling into the abyss. Me and my friends walked to a hill looking over our small town, and I fell into a loop. I could feel every cell in my body and clearly imagine every cell in the whole universe replicating themselves, and I felt that because I couldn't control any of this happening, I had no free will. I'd panic and try to tell my friends, who were having a great time, but the more they tried to reassure me the worse I felt, like they weren't in control of trying to reassure me and they were just doing it because their cells were forcing them to. What made it weirder was that a piece of music my friend had played on his phone at the beginning of the night kept looping in my head, but because it was from a phone speaker it has this unnatural tinny quality that became more and more disturbing. Sounded like my brain artificially resetting into panic mode. What's more, every blade of grass had a shimmering purple eye on it that looked sinister in the dark. I felt that the earth was watching me because I'd discovered its mechanism. I had to leave for home, convinced I'd feel okay when I got there. Turned out I felt exactly the same, the only difference was there were walls around me. I spent the rest of the night wide awake in bed, slowly coming down thinking I was a caveman and making quiet caveman noises to myself. That should have been the never again time, but the never again time was actually a few times later, When I got so high that I confessed to my mum that I was tripping. She's not the biggest fan of drugs. She went ballistic and I thought I'd ruined my life. Things are fine now, but fuck me, I ain't ever touching that shit again. It made a cloudy garbled mess of my brain from which I could do nothing but panic and wait for it to be over. Never again. Worked at a burger joint with no budget to fix the soda fountain, so it constantly dripped syrup. The old machine too, without the internal drain. We had one of our large 32 ounces cups there to catch the drips, dump it when it gets full and put a new one under. We hit a lunch rush and it's full, so I just put it to the side and knock another under the spout. Later, when the rush was over and we were standing around BSing, co-worker bets me $50 I wouldn't drink both the full cups of syrup. Me, being a broke and stupid 16-year-old at the time, took the challenge. I open-throated knocked back the first one, looked at the second and said, "Ugh, I don't think I'm going to make that." Co-worker says don't do it. The first one was massively stupid. Here's the $50 anyway. Don't drink the second one. Glad he stopped me, because I started vibrating about then. Just shaking so hard I couldn't function. Couldn't see straight, couldn't talk, and when I did it all came out at once. I had no idea it was possible to OD on caffeine and sugar, but I done it. I didn't sleep for nearly a week, literally, and couldn't stand still for about 2 weeks. Twitching out like a crack fiend constantly. Here I am 19 years later and still get episodes where I'll just violently shake out of nowhere and can't stop, Michael J. Fox style. Brain zaps, they are apparently called, like micro seizures. And all caused because a dumber 16-year-old was bet $50. Broken for life. We calculated it out the next week. I was the equivalent of about 100 cups of coffee in under a minute, plus the sugar. I died. TLDR took stupid bet, gave myself Parkinson's. I'm probably a little late to the thread, but here goes. About 10 plus years, I'm 16 years old, going to a house party at some girl's house whose parents are out of town, but I don't really know anyone except for my friends and a few other people. We arrive with some beers and a bottle of vodka we stole from my older sister. We say hey to a few people and get informed that there's a bunch of juice that someone made that everyone is welcome to drink. Perfect, I think to myself, I can use this juice as a mixer for the vodka I brought. So I make a drink with 1/5 vodka, 4/5 juice. It tastes like shit, but whatever. After I have maybe 2 or 3 of these I start to feel really drunk, so I go around back to smoke a cigarette and chill out, and that's the last thing I remember. According to my friends, they were looking for me all over the place and thought that I had left or walked home until they heard someone laughing about a drunk guy in the backyard who's laying in the flower bed. So they come back to find me laying in a bush, covered in juice and my pants unbuttoned but not off. They pull me out to realize it's not juice, but juice-colored vomit, and that I've attempted to urinate, but never got my pants off. So my friends load me up in the back of their truck and drive me to a Wendy's to help me sober up. By sober up I mean they force feed me water and $1 cheeseburgers. They start asking me how I got so shit-faced and what did I take, and I mumbled that I just made some mixed drinks with the juice and the vodka. They start cracking up because apparently I'm an idiot and it wasn't regular juice, but jungle juice, aka trash can punch, and that I had been spiking an already incredibly strong Everclear drink with vodka. They laughed at me for a while until I threw up $1 cheeseburgers all over my friend's truck bed. And that's how I learned what jungle juice is, and the first and last time I've ever had it. TLDR, don't drink the juice. I was home with my boyfriend on a Sunday night. One of my favorite, bad, movies, Wet Hot American Summer, had just finished up on Netflix and I was getting restless after a fairly boring day. I'm the type of person with a pretty endless amount of energy, and so after long periods of not moving much, I have to let that excess energy out, so I'll do a quick workout or something just to move around. On this particular night, I was just wearing a tank top and some yoga pants, and importantly, no bra. Now, I've got some big titty honkers, and when I bounce around, they wiggle like anime boobs. I mention this because after I got off the couch, I decided to just kind of dance around, you know, just being goofy or whatever. BF is on the computer playing Mass Effect with his headphones on. As I dance around on our polished concrete, read, slippery floors and do a toe kick. When I kick up, my boobs hit my stomach and make the greatest loudest slapping sound. I immediately bust out laughing and yell at my BF, asking if he heard the miraculous slapping sound. Headphones still on, he looks over and shakes his head. So, of course, I have to make the boob clap happen again, because I am a fucking child and stupid stuff fills me with glee. I quickly spin around, still chuckling, and kick up in attempt to make my boobs clap again. Because I was so excited to showcase my superior boob sounds, I kick up way too hard and end up with both my feet very briefly off the ground. My weight shifted forwards too quickly, and I fell to the ground hard and fast. Okay, so, remember how I mentioned we have concrete floors? Turns out concrete is not a terribly pleasant surface to land on. When I fell, I instinctively threw my arms to my sides to keep my tailbone from breaking. All my weight ended up on both my wrists, and I heard a small pop. BF turns around and sees me on the floor, quickly pulls off his headphones and asks me if I'm okay. I'm paralyzed by pain in both of my wrists, and after a visit to the urgent care the next day, we find out that not only did I break my right wrist, I also severely sprained my left wrist. Though I'm 90% certain that I broke both of them since the pain was pretty equal between the two. I couldn't hold a glass, button my pants, use a mouse, or even turn on the faucet for a week. You know, because I needed my boyfriend to hear my boob clap. Haven't done a toe touch again and probably never will. TLDR, did a toe kick that made my boobs make a clapping sound, tried to do it again so my BF could hear, kicked too high, fell, broke one wrist and severely sprained the other.